I love Elul. I find its energy magical. And let me tell you my history with Elul. I used to live in a neighborhood in Yerushalayim called Bayit Vagan. And on that street, I used to call Bayit Vagan God's country. Now, we could debate what you would call God's country, but I called it God's country. I'll give you an example. On my street, it was a little street with apartments and this and that. There were 4 yeshivas on one street. So when Elul would come, I would schlep my kids. They usually like the quick davening, but I schlepped them to hear the Rosh Yeshivas and the Meshkiach speak about Elul, okay? Or should I say scream about Elul? One of them, a Rav Mordechai Ezrachi, right? So this is what he would do, and my kids remember it for the rest of their life, okay? And this was exactly, he would go like this. Elul! Elul! He was like a human chauffeur. You hear? It was a show. Halavai, when we hear the shofar blow, you could hear that Elul! Okay, so that was one experience. Then I went to another one, to a yeshiva called Kol Torah, a very famous yeshiva. And the Meshkiach there, Rav Yitzhak Brodiansky, he didn't yell like Rav Ezrachi, he also sort of spoke very strongly. And he said like this, Eis Ratzon, Ze Milsahi, Eis Ratzon Milsahi, Ze Milsahi. What does that mean? Eis Ratzon, a favorable time. This is from a Gemara. It's a milsa. It's a thing. It's a real thing. It's a milsahi. And he was saying that Elul is a Eis Ratzon. And just hearing that changed my Elul. Just to hear, it's an Eis Ratzon, right? And I started to think into and look into what is an Eis Ratzon. Really, what is an Eis Ratzon? So, when is there an example of an Eis Ratzon? When you open, every Shabbos, right? When you open up, well really it's on Sheni and Chamishi. Kriyas HaTorah, when they open up the ark, you start saying Brishmei Demari Alma, right? Which is a passage from the Zohar, which translate, blesses the name of the master of the world. And why are you saying that? Right? I was told that in the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, they actually recited that very quickly. But why are you saying Brishmei Demari Alma? Because it's an Eis Ratzon. But if you don't know that it is an Eis Ratzon, and you don't really know what an Eis Ratzon is, you go Brishmei Demari Alma, right? Until the Sefer Torah arrives, right? And then on Shabbos, right, what do? They heave in sorrow, right? So I like kind of teasing about how sometimes we do the liturgy like musical parrots, you know. We mean well, you know, the heart's there, but we're like, they heave in sorrow, mi omer Moshe. Everyone is singing like this, but they're not really thinking about the words. Nine, 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 nine. What is it saying? When the Sefer Torah, right, when they had the Aron HaKodesh in the desert, it was like, if you will, a war machine. The enemies would scatter. So when you open up and you're saying V'hi Saron, you want to stop the missiles from Hezbollah and those things? It's an Eis Ratzon. You're praying to Hashem, may our enemies scatter. You hear? So that's just one example of an Eis Ratzon. Hatzos Laila is why do people do Tikkun Hatzos? It's an Eis Ratzon. It's a favorable time. It's a special time. Okay? Now, let's come to Elul. Okay? In Elul, you have the following. The history Rashi explains is Moshe spent 120 days with Hashem on Sinai, right? The first 40 getting the original Torah. And then there was the Cheta Egel, and 40 days he's begging to save the Jewish people. And when is it that his prayers are accepted by Hashem? Saying, he basically turned things around on Rosh Chodesh Elul. The ultimate turnaround was on Yom Kippur, okay? But he had already said, Hashem says, I forgive them, come up to me again. So Moshe Rabbeinu took the 40 days from Elul, right, Rosh Chodesh Elul yesterday, until Yom Kippur, and he turned it all into an Eis Ratzon. We're not talking about when you open the Torah for a few seconds, Eis Ratzon. Tikkun Hatzos, Eis Ratzon. The entire Chodesh, 24/7 is an Eis, plus 10 days is an Eis Ratzon. It's a favorable time. You hear this? It's as if, imagine this, and if you could imagine this, your Yiras Shamayim and your connection would be amazing. Imagine the ark is open and the Torah is being out for the entire month. That's what it is. That's Elul. Now you understand why he's going Elul, right? And it's a real thing, okay? So now we have to understand, what do you do with that? How do you take advantage of the Eis Ratzon of Elul, okay? And that brings us to the two main mitzvahs of Elul, okay? The special minhagim that are now halachas and mitzvahs is, what do? There's what I call the Elul shofar, right? Not the shofar Rosh Hashanah, the Elul shofar. And then you also have Tehillim Chaf Zayin, right? LeDavid, right? And they come right back to back, right? Those two mitzvahs are the way, in my humble opinion, to take incredible advantage of the Eis Ratzon, okay? We have the following that Rev Breitowitz, also part of the wonderful Yibbaneh, Rev Breitowitz gave me the exact source. It's in the Tikkunei Zohar, okay? What brings your mitzvahs to the Shemayim? Two things. Yiras Hashem, fear of Hashem, and Avos Hashem. When you do your mitzvahs with that, they ascend to the Shemayim, to the heavens, okay? So look at this brilliance of Hazal. Blow the Elul shofar and recite Tehillim Chaf Zayin. The Elul shofar, Yiras Hashem. We'll discuss exactly how. Tehillim Chaf Zayin, Avos Hashem. You hear? So what you can do in this Eis Ratzon, you can send everything up to the Shemayim. And in other words, if you have the right kavanah, I would suggest to bring it up to heaven. I would suggest using KLM. Okay, let's fly. KLM stands for kavanah lemitzvos, right? So with KLM for the Ava and the Yira, the Eis Ratzon will be unbelievable. Okay, so that it's like look at it this way. You're going to be doing this for 40 days. Right? You're going to hear the shofar will be 30 days, 29 days, right? And you're going to recite that Tehillim for 47. We have Yom Kippur all the way through up until Shmini Atzeres. You're saying the same Tehillim. So either this can become a very, God forbid, a very mechanical experience, or you could be inculcating Yiras Hashem and Avos Hashem with every day more, okay? That's what we're going to try to do now, okay? And in order to do this, I want to show you what to do when the shofar blows. That'll be our first step. Okay, as we just mentioned, the shofar mitzvah of Elul, the Elul shofar, is a way for us to ingrain Yiras Hashem. But let me first discuss something important. People tend to be afraid of being afraid of Hashem and afraid of His punishment. In other words, people are not comfortable with working on Yiras Hashem, punishment, things like that. It makes them uncomfortable and they tend to avoid it. I understand that, but it's based on a misconception, okay? It's really, they're making a mistake, and I'll tell you why. Because it says in Mishlei, in Perek Yud, Pasuk Chaf Zayin, it says, Yiras Hashem tosif yamim. Fear of Hashem will extend your days. So the Vilna Gaon says, wait a minute, I don't understand this. He said this back in the 1700s. What an insight into psychosomatic illness. He says, fear and worry and anxiety shorten your life. He recognized it. First of all, it makes you miserable, and it shortens your life. So how could Shlomo say, Yiras Hashem is Tosif Yamim? So he says it's basically like a spiritual miracle that Hashem does. The emotions that are destructive when you're afraid of what's going to happen at work and with this person, and when you have fear divorced of Hashem, it's harmful. But when you have fear of Hashem, it actually lengthens your life. It's a life extension plan. So don't be afraid of being afraid of Hashem, okay? And worrying, we're going to talk about worrying too. Rabbeinu Yonah says that worrying purifies your heart. It's a great emotion, but it all has to be towards Hashem. So that's my introduction to the shofar, the mitzvahs of the shofar. And what I want you to know is I came up with a acronym so that you can implement this on a daily basis. Remember the 4 mitzvahs involved with the Elul shofar. Okay, let's take a look. Here's my human pointer. Okay, when the Elul shofar blows, okay, have in mind the following mitzvahs. Okay, you see this? B-L-O-W, blow. B'yira, Yiras Hashem. Okay, so the first point is, as we discussed, that fear of Hashem is a healthy thing to do. And the Rambam explains, there's a famous pasuk in the Navi, the prophets say, when the shofar blows, how can you not tremble? Elul! Right? When you realize, when you just think Rosh Hashanah is coming, when you hear that shofar, let it trigger Yiras Hashem. And as we said, if you really want to send this up, have in mind the mitzvah of Yiras Hashem. The Shem mitzvah, okay? So have in mind Yiras Hashem. The purpose of the shofar is to awaken us and to fulfill that mitzvah. And then what's the L? L'shem mitzvah, okay? As I mentioned, I'll just give you what's the difference? What's the difference between doing a mitzvah with kavanah beforehand or without? So one thing is like this, is I was thinking of an ECG, right? I spoke with a doctor, right? Now, if God forbid a person's heart stopped beating, so if they want to obviously resuscitate the person, bring them back to life. So what happens is the ECG you'll see like this, right? It's just steady, and then if there's a little bit of a heartbeat, then they can, boom, shoot it up, right? So when you put in, before the shofar blows, you just have in mind, I have in mind the mitzvah of listening to the El Shofar. And I have in mind the mitzvah reciting Tehillim 27. You shoot your mitzvah up. The quality goes up like that. You bring a heartbeat to your mitzvahs, okay? So again, B'yira, with fear of Hashem. That's the first mitzvah. L'shem mitzvah, to listen to Elul shofar and reciting Tehillim. That's the second thing. By the way, this poster, if you send me an email, I'll get you a copy, because what we've learned at KLM is if you stick these things in your siddur, you'll make sure you do this, and it's a game changer. Okay, so that's the first two. What's the O stand for? Here we come to tshuva, right? The goal of the shofar and the fear is to wake us up to improve ourselves in Elul. That's the amazing thing. It's not just a 40-day program to develop Yiras Hashem and Avos Hashem, but it's to repair a relationship with Hashem, right? So you should also think about, let's go back to the Midbar, okay, and the Eis Ratzon. When Moshe was changing things around, the amazing thing is what does that Eis Ratzon do? Even if you're, if you will, in the doghouse, if you haven't acted well, it flips things around. When you make an improvement effort now, it's an absolute game changer. Now, here's the thing, is we don't always, again, this is another thing that's an irrational fear. We don't like to look at our shortcomings, okay? But again, when you're with your divine parent who loves you so much and just wants to have the best relationship with you and you to have the best relationship with others, guess what? It's safe and it's healthy and it's so good to focus on your shortcomings, okay? Now, the thing is this, we know we have a Yetzer Hara, and it's hard to even think we do, especially if we're religious. I pray, I learn Torah, I give charity, I observe Shabbos. I didn't make any golden calves, I'm fine. But really, I'll just give you, there's a Rav Yagain, Zikron Tzaddik Kadosh Lebrocha, so he helped us with this. He says, let's just take, here's a way to realize you're a little bit in the doghouse and we need to improve our relationship with Hashem. Let's say, does the Torah let you get angry, just to lose again? No, right? So he says, let's say you got angry just twice a day, okay? That's 700 times in a year, okay? Or let's say of the 100 brachas you're supposed to recite with kavana, right? And you're not supposed to throw them out of your mouth. Let's say you threw out, let's say out of 100, 2, maybe 2%. I'm chuckling, we know it might be more. So do the math. You hear? So what I encourage you to do when the shofar is blowing, own your shortcomings. Just think for a minute. I'm really glad to have these 40 days to kind of prove Hashem with you. Yep, you hear? So just do that. It's called Hirhor Tshuva. Even though you don't do the whole process, it's beautiful. A wicked person can get married by having thoughts of tshuva. A little, even thoughts and yearnings to have tshuva, amazing. Okay? And the last one, which again, if I am giving you the introduction, fear of Hashem lengthens your life. Okay? Worrying about your Rosh Hashanah lengthens your life. What's W? Worry about the judgment of Rosh Hashanah. Okay? This worrying about the consequences of our not repairing relationship, Rabbeinu Yonah explains in Shari Tshuva, it's one of the 20 steps that helps you purify your heart. You hear? It's such a beautiful result that comes from that kind of worry. So don't be afraid to worry. It's life enhancing, it's purifying. Okay? So just to review, Yiras Hashem, that's the mitzvah of the Elul shofar. Have in mind the mitzvah of listening to that shofar and reciting the Tehillim. Own your shortcomings. Work on your relationship with it. Use the trigger of the shofar to remind yourself, Shem, I want to improve. That little bit is already something beautiful, and you keep nurturing it during the time. And finally, worry about the judgment of Rosh Hashanah. Realize that everything that, a lot of blessings probably happen to everybody, and that's all I wish on everybody. However, there's been a lot of difficulties. Needless to say this year, right? For us, our family, our communities, Klal Yisrael, right? So this worrying gets us in the right frame of mind. And what's beautiful is by getting, listen, this I'm going to finish this part with and then we'll go to the Tehillim. But Ibn Gabriel, right, a famous Paitan who wrote a Slichos, listen to this Slicha. It's so profound and beautiful, and it reflects this shofar to Tehillim Chaf Zayin, to L'Davi. He says like this, Mimcha ve'elecha ivroach. From you to you I flee. In other words, I flee from you because I'm afraid, because I know that all the things that are challenging that happen, it come from you, Hashem, right? Because you want me to grow and change, but it's scary and I'm fleeing from you. That's Yiras Hashem, that's life enhancing, but I flee to you, right? Meaning that's Ahava, I cling to you. That's what Tehillim Chaf Zayin is going to be about. Okay, as we said, there's a profound slicha that says, Mimcha ve'elecha evroach. From you, Hashem, and to you I flee. I flee from you out of fear, but then I flee to you because you're my source of love. I tell you, thank God, I just saw this, when you have grandchildren, everybody should, right time. When you have grandchildren, it's really nice because you can just observe them and let the parents work on them, and you get to see a lot of things. So I saw my granddaughter a week or two ago. She falls down, and it was nothing big, but she's like this, "Ah, Ima!" And then she hugs her Ima. That's called Dveikus, right? The Dveikus is what we're really seeking. Is we don't want to be close to Hashem. That's not enough, okay? Hashem doesn't have physical proximity, but if you, Rabbi used to joke, what neighborhood does Hashem live in? But no, you don't want to just be close to Hashem. You want to cleave to Hashem. You want to cling to Him. You want to be in an embrace in a spiritual sense. You hear that? So that is what Tehillim Chaf Zayin 20 LeDavid Hashem Ori. It's all about, says the Malbim. It's all about the Dveikus, clinging to Hashem. So let's take a look. All right. So the shofar was blow. Okay. This Tehillim is close. Okay. This will bring you close. All right. So, as we said, the Malbim explains, how come David, in the Tehillim it says, Hashem, you're my light, you're my salvation. Who should I be afraid of? If the enemies are coming after me, they're going to fall. If an army encroaches on me, an entire army, I'm not afraid. How can he, come on, how could he not be afraid? The Malbim says is, he knows that he has nothing to be afraid of because he has Dveikus. He clings to Hashem. He knows that if your desire, what does it mean to cleave or cling to Hashem? The Gemara says he's a consuming fire. He's an Eish Ochla. How do you cleave? No, but when your thoughts in your heart are, your soul is where your thoughts and your Ruach, your Neshama, your Ruach, when their thoughts in your hearts are directed towards Hashem, that's clinging to Him. And David and Melech knew that Dveikus, that cleaving, he doesn't have anything to be afraid of. Okay, so that's C. Cleaving to Hashem. Dveikus. So that's the first, when you recite, remember, I don't want you just knowing about this. I want you to have this in mind when you recite it. It'll be such a profound leveling up if you have in mind these mitzvahs before you do them. So have in mind the mitzvah of Dveikus, cleaving to Hashem when you recite this Tehillim. It's so beautiful, okay? And then, of course, there's Avos Hashem. Like we said, that you are on a 40-day program to develop just a beautiful depth of love for Hashem. And so realize this Tehillim, and I don't want to sell it short. Let me just say it this way. A Tehillim is a love letter, but it's a divinely inspired love letter written by the one who was the greatest lover of Hashem. Okay? So it's filled with Avos Hashem. The Sefer Charedim says, when you love someone, what do? You sing to them, right? You sing to them. So that's what he says, Ashir of Azamra Hashem. He says it in there. I'm singing to you. I love you. I appreciate you. All your protection, all you do for me, right? So let the feelings of love fill up while you recite this Tehillim, which is celebrating the protection we have. And we all know the incredible protection. We're not David and Melech, but Hashem protects us so much. That's just one basis to work on love of Hashem every time you recite the Tehillim. Or. Okay? In Hebrew, the word or means light, right? So we say Hashem Ori. The Midrash says that's an allusion to Rosh Hashanah, right? Or light is right. But now we have to ask a question. How is Rosh Hashanah light? I mean, it's a very heavy day. It's a day of judgment, right? But the answer is what is darkness and what is light in a spiritual sense? So first let's talk about Shabbos, a beautiful thing Rabbi Miller points out, Rabbi Victor Miller Zatzal. You know, the Gemara says that you should look in the candles when you make Kiddush, right? Why? Because it says that during the week you suffer a level of blindness, right? And by looking in the Shabbos light, it corrects this subtle type of reduction in eyesight, okay? So he explains it like this. You know, being busy all the time and running around and getting caught up into, we're not seeing the point of life, which is connecting to God. We often get so caught up if a person follows what's going on, it looks like other people are running the show, right? So we're in a certain darkness, but when you just look at those Shabbos candles around you, Hashem did Maisa Brachus, Hashem runs the world, it corrects your spiritual eyesight. Rosh Hashanah is light, according to that. Rosh Hashanah, we talk about how the fact is that everything, the inanimate objects, the plant life, everything is really seeking to connect to Hashem. We're talking about Hashem's majestic rule and providence. We're focusing, we're putting everything aside, and we're really filling ourselves with light. It's such forgive me, it's an enlightening Hag. It's so enlightening because we're concentrating on Hashem's Romamus, His awesome majesty. And that's also another mitzvah of yours, Hashem. In the shofar, we have fear of consequences, worrying about consequences, fear, classic fear. That's one level, but there's a higher level, and that's what light is. Romamus, reflecting Hashem's majesty. So I just tell you, when you're reciting this Tehillim, and it says Ori, Rosh Hashanah, think of the beautiful prayers of Rosh Hashanah when you say that word, right? And think of the majesty of Hashem, and you now have another mitzvah called Yiras Aromamus, okay? This applies to all mitzvahs, serving Hashem b'simcha, okay? As we know, the Arizal said that all his depth of secrets came from him having tremendous joy. So I'm saying, if you're reciting a divine love letter written by David HaMelech to Hashem, right? And you're celebrating the kind of intimate relationship, why not do that with joy? Okay? So just feel joy while you recite it, and then you get the mitzvah of serving Hashem with simcha. Finally, Eis Ratzon Nilsahi. This is where we started. The entire Chodesh is an Eis Ratzon, right? That means that Hashem is Anila Dodi V'Dodi Li. Dodi translates beloved, right? I'm for my beloved. To realize that Hashem is close right now, and to seek to recognize you're in His presence, and you're in a time that He's like opening a divine flow, right? It's an Eis Ratzon, right? There's so much love and fear, and there's so many things you can do to improve and develop yourself, and also just now's the time to ask when it's an Eis Ratzon. That's why we do Brit Shmei Damari Alma. When it's an Eis Ratzon, ask Hashem. He's your divine parent. He loves you, and He only wants to do good for you. So take advantage of Elul.
Shama shir shir chadasha